Alright, well I'm going to make a video comparing some gas regulators. I'm going to try to keep the ejection port in frame so you can see it. Yes, I know this muzzle device is upside down. I got it as a donation to test with a CGS Helios QD here. And yeah, I've determined that different muzzle vices affect back pressure in different ways in that. I'll be doing a write-up on that later, and I might link or post this in the comments as like a supplement if anyone's interested. But I want to compare the KNS discarder, Scarburator, and the factory OEM gas regulator. All of these will be using what was marked as a 1.80 millimeter gas jet from PMM. I don't have pin gauges, so I can't confirm if that's the actual size. But I'm going to start in the top position and fire from one round of the mag and adjust down until it fails to lock back. In most of my testing, I've noticed that it's failed to lock back before it's failed to strip a top round. It's usually a position or two below the first position it fails to lock back in. For the sake of brevity, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to shoot the one round to lock back so this video is not as long. So anyway, it'll be pretty awful with the volume, I'm sure. It'll probably blow it out after I fire a couple rounds, so apologies if it does. I normally don't shoot from an ammo can. I'm just trying to keep stuff in frame so people can see it. So that's full gas, position 14 on the discarder. There we go. It is fairly stiff in the first turn from either 0 to 14 or 14 to 13 is pretty stiff. Or sorry. Clarification, starts on 13, it's got 14 total settings. So 13, that was 12, this is 11. This is position 10. Now in position 9. And then spoilers, I checked just before this, doing the same thing. 8 was the position it failed to lock back, so we'll see if it does that again. Yep. So position 8 out of 14 total positions, 0 through 13, is where it failed to lock back. Forgot to mention this is with X-Tax M193 clone, which is this ammo. I'll pause the video, swap to a different regulator, do the same thing, and be right back. Continuing, I now have the Scarburator starting in position 10. I'll do the same thing until it fails. No prediction. Didn't test this one yet, at least with this gas jet. I've tested it before in a different barrel length. So, alrighty. Pretty successful. I will note it is far easier to turn, which may be good or bad depending on what you're doing. I think that most people will probably find one setting that works for unsuppressed pretty well, and the setting it works for suppressed pretty well. And rarely ever swap between those, but if you have a bunch of different loadings you're shooting, you may. 77 grain from Black Hills performs way different with a can than M193 does, at least in my data so far. I don't have as much to sample with, but it's quite different and doesn't do what you would think it would do with different devices, so you'll probably find that interesting. Oh, one too many there. Swap that back down one. I'm just being fairly lazy shooting here. I'm not really trying to hit anything particular, just shooting straight into the backstop. All the regulators get a bit warm. Well, hopefully it's not too bad by the time I get done. As far as felt energy, I feel like the highest position on the KNS feels a bit snappier than the other positions, or the highest position on the Scarburator. But by now, in the adjustments, it was failing, I believe. I'm pretty sure the resolution in adjustments is grosser, larger on the KNS, and you have a larger overall range, whereas it's much more minute with this based off how they operate. There we go. First failure. Failure to lock back. And what position are we in? We are in position 2, it appears. Let me double check. That is correct. This regulator only has 10 positions, and position 2 was the one that it failed in. Keep in mind, I have stepped down my gas jet. The factory recommended or installed gas jet in the 10-inch barrels is a 2.00 millimeter. This is a tad longer, about 0.68 inches longer than that. And I stepped down to a 1.80, which, given that this functions almost all the way down, and that the KNS functions for the first few positions, you could probably go further. I did find in my testing that it was more inconsistent with which positions consistently locked back and didn't lock back when I went lower. So I'll likely not be further testing with the other jets unless some really weird stuff happens with all the devices, and I'm just curious. But anyway, I will now swap to the OEM regulator. It's the one that came with the barrel, and I have one that's got one of the newer, larger ports in it that's anti-flash, supposedly. I'll see if they do anything visually different, but I don't think they will. Stay tuned. All right, I now have the OEM regulator in the non-vented position. That'll probably help if I change it around. That may be a little spicier or as spicy as the full gas in the starter. So that's pretty close. I'll have to check that later to see if back to back. And this will be vented. You only have the 2 positions, so I'm going to guess it will cycle, but it may not. It did. So still pretty overgas with this. I'm not too high above sea level, so do I need this much gas here? Probably not, but you go up in altitude, you may. But anyway, I doubt I'll see anything different in the other regulator, but I'll grab it. I chambered the round off camera, but the other regulator, the inlet orifice is slightly larger in the vented setting, but I don't believe it'll matter. Full gas should do the same thing and be pretty harsh. Maybe even be harsher. So, anyway. It is pretty unpleasant with the sound reflecting downwards on this muzzle device because it is not timed. But again, I'm testing a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to time it because it's going to come off after I'm done. I've already shot all my data collection for the minimum I'm doing, but I'll demo what I do, and if something else occurs that's vastly different, I'll talk about that. Definitely less gas than the first position, but I can't really tell the difference between the two regulators. All right, I'm going to pause and throw the can on, and I'll shoot in the lowest position, or the position everything failed in except for, these two. And you can see what that looks like. All right, can attached, just lightly snug, so I'm going to check it between mounts or regulators, and I'll check it when I'm on the KNS since I have more positions to cycle through. So we'll see how this looks. Significantly more pleasant on the ears. I'm double muffed up, so very quiet. Let me pause and get the other regulator. The older factory regulator now, also in the vented position. All right. Allow me moving to the Scarburator in position 2. Scarburator in position 2. That felt much softer than the vented position, I will note. We'll do all the way closed. With my previous barrel length, it would typically cycle the round, but not lock back consistently. A little gas bleeds by. We'll see. Yep, very pleasant and soft, I will say. I would not run it on that position and trust it to work. I suspect the above position is the way to go. I'm just going to go ahead and fire 3 rounds and demo it. It does work very well. Even though my other post may have seemed negative, it is still a very good product. Yeah, very pleasant. I'm now going to swap to the KNS discarder and do the same thing. Now I'll be using the KNS discarder, starting in position 8. I will note it is slightly louder. You do hear a bit of that venting. I wouldn't say it's unpleasant with the muffs on, but if you're one of the weirdos that wants to shoot without hearing protection and your silencer on a 5.56, it'll probably be more damaging. Now in position 7. Very soft. I would say not quite as soft as the Scarburator in position 2 yet. Let me check, I can look at it. I did not adjust it. Okay. Position 6. Now we're getting very soft. Position 5 was where I observed some of the failures. Well, I should say one failure earlier. So 6 would probably be the minimum you'd want to be comfortable running it in. The first round I fired on position 5 failed, but I just happened to check a few lower because I was interested. And when I came back up to 5 doing some samples, it did not fail when I did my string of samples. So we'll see what happens now. Still locked back. Okay. Now this is a sample size of 1. It's just for demo purposes. Keep in mind, don't be like, oh my god, it'll run in that position every time. There we go. Keep going. There we go. So first failure. I think that was position 3. Yes, so position 3 was the first observed failure for this particular muzzle device. Now, when I'm doing these tests for the sample size, what I'm doing is I'm taking a fully loaded mag. That's down around. Now fully loaded mag. Another mag with 1 round, and then plus 1 in the gun. And I'll check around where I guess it'll fail to start, and then go up or down till I find where the gun first fails. And then after that, I go up to the next size and test until I either get 10 successful passes, so firing the first round, picking up the second round, then stripping the mag, taking another and testing lockback. That is 1 test. If it passes that, repeating that up to 10 times, so 20 shots. If it successfully does that, then I stop. If it doesn't, then I move to the next position and repeat that until I observe a success. So let's see if it'll feed. It will not feed. So there you go. You can see on camera it did not pick up the round. Obviously, I don't need to test lockback because it didn't feed. Well, now it's getting kind of toasty to use my gloved hand. There we go. I'll repeat that once in position 4. That's 4. I'm an idiot. All right. Make sure it's still tight. Nomex gloves are great, by the way. That one successfully fed in 4. Fails the lockback. So as you can see, it's not 100% consistent. You are getting some erratic jetting in this short of a barrel, as well as the, consistency of the ammo. How consistent is it? Let's go back up one more. Demo that. Where's the other mag? There we go. Alrighty. Oh, wrong one. I'm an idiot. Plus 1 at first. Alright. I'm pretty sure that did feed. It did. And lockback. Anyway, so I'm doing a bunch of research, quote-unquote, field test, checking to see if different muzzle devices will lock the gun backs, failure to chamber, all that good stuff in different positions. I'm testing primarily with the PMC, or the X-Tac, PMC's, name brand, because I have a lot of it, but I'm also using some 77 grain Black Hills. It's a more consistent loading, but depending on the muzzle devices, the results are not as consistent. Thus far, I've only tested a handful. I've not tested any Reardon devices or a LPM Liberty Bell. Or no, Liberty Bell's one test. Eclipse or Baby Bell. So maybe after those. But this particular muzzle device appears to be the worst as far as back pressure with 77 grain. And it's pretty inconsistent with this gas jet with M193. Whether that's the other variables, I don't know. But it seems to be pretty close to the direct thread. So it doesn't appear to be as effective as the LPM Liberty Bell that I've been using. So again, there's variables, whether or not different barrel lengths will have different effects, different calibers, different loadings, all kinds of variables to mess with, and I recommend doing your own testing. But in this particular combination, it would not be what I permanently put on this after I'm done with my testing. Nothing wrong with the device. I think it's great as far as the overall function without the can. It's not as obnoxious, but with the can, which is how this thing's going to live, it's not my favorite. So, well, anyway, feature length film, I know, but I figured people would rather see some shooting, and If I recorded my entire test process, it'd have like a 4-hour video, I'm sure, of me doing every single repeat. But just to give you an idea of what's going on and what the different regulators look like and all that. So, thanks. See ya.